Every single one of us, I think, if you've ever run a team or a company or even just a small project, you've run into this.
Oh, absolutely.
This moment of just complete frustration,
Yeah.
where someone does something that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
It causes a huge problem, a measurable loss, and you look at it and you just think, why? There was no benefit for them. There was no benefit for anyone.
No.
It's just pure uncompensated loss. And that's the thing that secretly just drains all the energy, all the capital, all the trust out of a system.
It really is the silent killer of organizational health, and it gets misdiagnosed all the time, right? You call it incompetence or
Yeah.
maybe just bad luck.
Yeah, it was a one-off thing.
Exactly. But today we're doing a deep dive into what I think is the best intellectual framework out there for defining this, for measuring it, and most importantly, for strategically countering it. We're pulling from a really potent trio of sources.
A very interesting mix.
It is. We're starting with the economic historian Carlo M. Cipolla and his amazing essay, The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity.
Which sounds like a joke, but it's not.
Not at all. It's rigorously analytical. And we're pairing that with some really profound ethical frameworks, including some scriptural warnings, and even using the second law of thermodynamics as an analogy to frame the whole problem.
Okay, so economics, ethics, and physics, that's the stack you need, I guess, to stop treating this kind of systemic chaos like it's just a headache you have to live with.
And start treating it like a quantifiable strategic risk.
Exactly.
Precisely. So our mission today, for you listening, is really strategic. We want to establish some clear, firm boundaries. First, an analytical boundary from Cipolla to help you identify destructive behavior in purely economic terms.
So you can take the emotion out of it.
Take the emotion out. And second, an ethical boundary, one that lets you manage that destruction to halt the loss without, compromising your own character or your team's sense of psychological safety. We want you to leave this not just being aware of this stuff, but prepared to become what we're going to call an unyielding fortress against it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And we have to start with Cipolla himself. Because he wasn't some satirist or, a comedian. This guy was a serious academic.
Deeply serious, a preeminent economic historian. His main work was on things like public health in the Middle Ages, literacy rates, the economic impact of the plague.
So heavy stuff.
Very heavy stuff, which is what gives this essay, which he originally just wrote for a few friends back in the 70s, so much weight. He wasn't just, venting about his colleagues. He was applying a historian's analytical rigor to a deeply human problem.
And the tone of it is
Yeah.
just fascinating. It's so detached, almost like a scientific paper.
That's the key. He uses this meticulous, serious language to analyze something that's usually messy and emotional. He doesn't treat stupidity as a moral failing. He treats it like a physical force, like gravity or friction.
A quantifiable, destructive force in the universe.
Exactly. And at the heart of his analysis are 5 fundamental laws.
All right, let's get into them. Law 1. This one kind of hits you right between the eyes.
It does. Law 1. The inevitability of stupidity. Cipolla states that always and inevitably everyone underestimates the number of stupid individuals in circulation.
And he's not just being cynical there, right? He's making a strategic point.
It's a fundamental warning about your defenses. You think you know how much incompetence is out there. You build your systems, your plans, your risk models, and you are always, always wrong.
You're building a system to handle, say, a 10% error rate, when the reality is closer to 20 or 30%.
And that gap, that underestimation, that is your primary vulnerability. You haven't built in enough redundancy, enough checklists, enough fail-safes. So you're constantly being surprised by the one thing that is totally statistically predictable.
It's why we spend half our lives in meetings correcting avoidable errors. We just refuse to accept the sheer volume of the threat.
And think about the energy that drains from a leader. You budget your energy for rational problems, market competition, technical hurdles. You don't budget for the sheer grinding volume of non-rational waste.
The moment you accept Law 1, though, you can change your approach.
You stop being surprised. And you start designing resilient systems that just assume a high degree of irrationality is a given.
Which leads right into Law 2, because this is where our biases really get dismantled. We think we know where to find this problem.
We do, and we're wrong again. Law 2, the universality of stupidity. The probability that a given person is stupid is independent of any other characteristic of that person.
Oof, that's a powerful one. Because we all have this bias, right? That, an education, a fancy title, a corner office, that stuff inoculates you somehow.
It's a cognitive shortcut. We assume a high-status person must be intelligent in all things. But Cipolla says no. Stupidity is, well, it's democratic.
An equal opportunity affliction.
Exactly. It's found equally across all demographics, all education levels, all professions. You'll find it in CEOs, you'll find it in Nobel laureates, you'll find it in university professors, and the percentage is always roughly the same.
So the lesson for a leader is you can't use credentials as a shield. You can't assume someone's title protects the organization from them causing a net loss.
You can't. A brilliant coder can be definitionally stupid when it comes to, say, interpersonal communication. Their action can still result in pure net loss for the team's morale and productivity.
Okay, so that brings us to the core, the golden law. Law 3. This is the actual analytical tool, isn't it? It's where he moves past observation and gives us a concrete definition.
This is the centerpiece, Law 3, the golden law. And the definition is purely economic. It's not about intent, it's about the outcome. A stupid person is one who causes losses to another person or to a group of persons while deriving no gain and possibly even incurring losses.
So it's defined purely by the unprofitable transaction.
The unprofitable transaction. That is the perfect way to put it. An action that results in a pure, uncompensated net loss to the system. This is what separates it from, say, malice or simple error.
Because a malicious person, a bandit, they gain something.
They gain something. This stupid person's action just creates a black hole where time, energy, and money disappear.
Can you give a modern example?
Sure. Think about an employee who spends, say, 40 hours building a custom spreadsheet to track data that's already perfectly tracked in the company's CRM.
Right.
The outcome. A week of salary is wasted. That's a loss for the company. The new spreadsheet is redundant and creates confusion. That's a loss for their team and the employee themselves. They gained nothing. And in fact, they've lost a week they could have spent on valuable work.
Loss for self, loss for others.
A perfect loss transaction, pure destruction of value.
And that brings us to Law 4, which is probably the most frustrating part for any competent person trying to manage this.
It is. Law 4, the power of stupidity. Non-stupid people always underestimate the damaging power of stupid individuals.
The logic trap.
The logic trap, exactly. Intelligent people operate on a baseline assumption of rationality. We assume that other people's actions are driven by some kind of motive profit, self-preservation, gaining an advantage.
So when we see a loss action, we can't compute it. Our brains short-circuit trying to find the hidden agenda.
Yes. You waste so much energy thinking, what are they really trying to do here? What's the 4D chess move I'm not seeing? You assume there must be some hidden benefit for them that justifies the chaos.
But there isn't one.
There isn't one. And because you can't grasp the fundamental non-rationality of the act, you can't predict it, and you can't build effective defenses against it. You're looking for greed when you should just be looking for friction.
And that failure of imagination leads directly to his final and maybe most provocative point, Law 5.
Law 5, the ultimate danger. The stupid person is the most dangerous type of person there is.
Okay, more dangerous than a bandit. More dangerous than a criminal. That feels like a stretch.
It's not, though. If you think about it in systemic economic terms, let's make the contrast really clear. A bandit, a thief, a con artist, they create a transfer of wealth.
Right. They take from me, so they gain and I lose. The total amount of wealth is the same. It just moved.
Precisely. The resource still exists. It's just been redistributed. A bandit is harmful, yes, but they're rational, they're predictable. Their actions don't shrink the overall size of the economic pie.
But the stupid person.
The stupid person sets the pie on fire. Their actions cause a net loss. They don't transfer the energy, they convert it into waste, into chaos. And this constant non-rational erosion of value is what truly threatens a system's stability way more than predictable greed.
So the bandit makes the system less fair. The stupid person makes the system smaller and weaker.
That's it. That's why they are the ultimate danger. They are a force of pure systemic decay.
Okay, so to make this actionable, to move it from just theory to something you can use, Sapola created a visual tool, a 4-quadrant matrix.
Which is the ultimate diagnostic chart for any leader.
Right. This is how you can actually map an action and figure out how you should respond. It's all based on 2 simple axes, right?
2 simple axes. The vertical axis is the gain or loss for the person performing the action, the actor or the self. The horizontal axis is the gain or loss for everyone else, others, or society.
Okay, so let's walk through the 4 quadrants, starting with the top right, the ideal state.
The top right is the intelligent quadrant. Any action that lands here creates a gain for the self and a gain for others.
Win-win.
The classic win-win. This is the successful business deal, the innovation that helps the company and its customers, the employee who mentors a junior colleague, helping them grow while also building a stronger team. Chipola says these actions are the only thing that allows a society to prosper. They generate net positive energy.
So the goal of any organization is just to maximize the time its people spend in this quadrant.
That's the whole game. Now, top left. This one is interesting.
This is the helpless or naive quadrant.
Right. The action here results in a loss for the self, but a gain for others.
So these are the martyrs, the selfless people.
They can be the true altruists. The person who stays late every night to help their team hit a deadline, even if it leads to their own burnout. They're essential for a healthy society. Their sacrifice builds trust and cohesion.
But he also calls them naive. They're vulnerable.
Hugely vulnerable. They are, frankly, the primary target for the people in the next quadrant. A good leader has to protect the helpless people on their team to make sure their generosity isn't exploited.
Okay, let's go there. Bottom right. The bandit.
Or predatory. This is the quadrant of gain for self, but loss for others.
So this is your classic office politician.
Yeah.
The person who takes credit for other people's work.
Or the executive who cuts corners on safety to boost their own bonus. Or just simple fraud. The action is driven by a rational calculation of personal gain at the expense of the group.
And like we said before, they're harmful, but
they are predictable. You can manage bandits with audits, with clear rules, with consequences. You anticipate their greed, and you build systems to contain it. They're a managed risk.
Which leaves the last box, the one we're really focused on, bottom left. The stupid quadrant.
And its definition is stark. Loss for self and a loss for others. This is the chaos agent, the action that produces no value for anyone and actively destroys it for everyone, including the person doing it.
It's pure, irrational destruction.
Precisely. And the key insight from the sources is that this isn't just 4 simple boxes, it's a dynamic plane.
Right. There are gradations. It's not just that you're in the box, it's how far into the corner you are.
Yes. The distance from the center axis shows the magnitude of the impact. This is crucial for a leader trying to prioritize threats.
So an action close to the center is pretty minor, but one way out in the corner is catastrophic.
Exactly. In the intelligent quadrant, an action near the center is a small favor. Far out in the top right corner, that's inventing the polio vaccine. A massive win for self and a massive win for humanity.
And the same scale applies to the negative quadrants.
Of course. A minor bandit near the center steals office pens. Annoying, but manageable. A major bandit far out in the bottom right corner is Bernie Madoff.
Okay. And the stupid quadrant?
This is where underestimating the magnitude gets you killed. An action near the center is a minor bureaucratic fumble that wastes an afternoon.
Annoying.
An action far out in the bottom left corner. That's the executive who, out of sheer ego, refuses to kill a failing project, burning through millions of dollars, destroying their team's morale, and ultimately getting themselves fired.
Catastrophic loss for the company and catastrophic loss for their own career.
The sheer destructive power is immense.
And people aren't stuck in one quadrant forever. There's fluidity here.
This is maybe the most important nuance for a leader. People move. An intelligent, high-performing person can have a bad day. They're tired, they're distracted, they miss a key piece of information, what we call ignorance of fact, and they perform a stupid action.
It's a temporary slip.
A temporary slip into the loss quadrant. And that's a coachable moment. You fix the process, you give them the information they were missing.
But Cipolle's real concern isn't the person who slips up once.
No. His concern is the individual who seems to live systemically in that bottom left quadrant. The person whose actions, time and time again, consistently result in net loss.
A pattern.
It's the pattern. And when you, as a leader, identify that pattern, you have to intervene because that person is a constant, measurable drain on the system's energy.
Okay, so this is where we bring in the physics. It sounds like a stretch, but the metaphor of entropy is, well, it's shockingly accurate for describing what this force does to an organization.
It's a near-perfect analogy. It provides the why. It explains the mechanism of systemic decay that Cipolla identifies.
So let's refresh everyone on the physics. What is entropy?
In simple terms, entropy is a measure of disorder or randomness. The second law of thermodynamics states that in an isolated system, entropy never decreases. Things naturally move from a state of order to a state of disorder. Things fall apart.
The universe tends towards chaos.
It does. And if you think of an organization as a system that requires usable energy time, money, trust to create order and do useful work,
then Cipolla's third law, the definition of the stupid act, is the social version of that.
it's an exact fit. The loss he talks about, the loss for self, the loss for others, that is energy, time, capital, trust. Energy that has been made unavailable for productive work. If your team spends a whole day fixing a completely avoidable error.
Those 100 man-hours are just gone.
Yeah.
You can't use them to innovate, to serve a customer, to do anything useful.
The usable energy in your system has decreased. That is the literal definition of increased entropy.
And the irrationality of it maps onto the randomness part. A bandit is a predictable problem. Stupidity is just noise. It's static.
Exactly. The irrationality makes the system chaotic. It forces leaders to stop doing ordered, high-value work like planning for the future and instead spend all their time on disordered, reactive firefighting.
Cleaning up messes.
Cleaning up messes. It's a massive increase in the system's entropy. And because laws 1 and 2 tell us this force is everywhere and constant, it's always pushing your organization toward decay.
So, what's the opposite? If stupidity is entropy, what is intelligence?
The work of the intelligent quadrant is to perform the gentropy, negative entropy.
Creating order.
It's the hard, constant work of creating and maintaining order. It's building the checklist. It's clarifying the procedure. It's documenting the process. These things take energy, yes, but they prevent a much, much greater loss of energy down the line.
So the job of a leader is essentially to be a negentropic force.
Yeah.
An agent of order.
You're an energy manager.
Yeah.
And your primary job is to maximize the usable energy of your system by fighting like hell to minimize entropic waste.
Which means you need tools to fight it. You can't just be aware of it.
You need practical tools. The first is for diagnosis, the 5 whys. This is how you move past just blaming an individual and find the systemic root cause of the entropic event.
Okay, let's use a big example. An employee accidentally deletes a critical client database. That is a catastrophic loss of a stupid action.
So we apply the 5 whys.
Yeah.
First why. Why did the database get deleted? Because the employee clicked permanent delete. The surface level answer is human error, ignorance of fact.
Okay, easy to stop there and just fire the employee. But we keep going. Why 2?
Why was a junior employee able to permanently delete a critical database with a single click?
So now it's a process failure. The system shouldn't have allowed that.
Right. Why 3? Why did the process rely only on human vigilance instead of having a technical failsafe, like a 2-step confirmation or an admin override? Now it's systemic failure. The leadership didn't understand the true risks.
Systemic ignorance of consequence.
Exactly. Why 4? Why wasn't that failsafe implemented? Well, maybe the IT department said it was too expensive or too complicated, so now it's a resource allocation failure.
And why 5? Why was it considered too expensive? Because leadership never actually quantified the catastrophic cost of losing that database. It was an abstract risk. This is a leadership failure in risk assessment.
And by the 5th why, you've moved from Bob is an idiot to our entire risk management and IT governance process is broken.
That's powerful. It tells you whether the solution is termination or a complete process overhaul.
And to get the buy-in for that overhaul, you have to make the cost of entropy tangible. You have to quantify what we call the chaos tax.
The tax you pay for tolerating disorder, how do you measure it?
3 simple metrics. First, recovery time. Just add up the total number of employee hours your team spends in a month fixing avoidable mistakes. That's your waste.
Okay, that's your time cost. What about the money?
That's the cost of chaos. You take that recovery time and you multiply it by the average hourly wage of the people involved. If it took 10 people who make $50 an hour a full day to fix a screw-up.
That's $4,000.
$4,000 of pure, unadulterated waste from one incident. When you show a CFO that the company is paying a chaos tax of $1 million a year, you get your budget for process improvement.
And the third metric is squishier, but maybe more important. The trust index.
This measures the erosion of psychological safety. You can track it through things like team surveys, but you can also see it. It's the reluctance to delegate. It's when your star performers start building their own private systems because they don't trust the main ones.
It's the invisible friction that grinds everything to a halt.
And leads to burnout and turnover. The chaos tax there is paid with your best people.
And this all links back, philosophically, to Socrates.
It does. Socrates famously said that all wrongdoing is involuntary, that it comes from ignorance, a lack of knowledge. This reinforces the idea that our first step shouldn't be punishment, but diagnosis. Is this a correctable ignorance of fact, or a systemic pattern of willful incompetence? That distinction is everything.
So we have the analysis from Cipolla, and we understand the threat as entropy. Now we have to get practical. How do you actually fight back? The goal is to move from being a victim of this chaos to becoming that unyielding fortress.
Right, and that requires a unified strategy. You can't just be smart or just be ethical or just be disciplined. You need all three working together. You need three shields.
Okay, let's break them down. Shield 1, the intellectual shield. This is Topola's analysis in action. What's the immediate mandate when you identify a net loss?
The mandate is simple and absolute. Halt the loss immediately. The second you diagnose an action as being in that bottom left quadrant, loss for self, loss for others, you stop the process.
And no hesitation.
No hesitation. You don't waste time debating their intent. You don't try to get inside their head and rationalize the irrational. That in itself is another waste of energy, a meta-stupid action.
So what's the primary defense mechanism here? How do you prevent these things from happening so often?
Relentless enforcement of precise written standards and protocols, checklists, drills. These things feel like bureaucracy, but they aren't. They are your defensive bulwarks against entropy.
They're not for 90% of the time things go right. They're for the 10% of the time they go catastrophically wrong.
Exactly. And you use the concept of ignorance to sort the problem. Is this an isolated error from ignorance of fact? Okay, that's a coaching moment. Or is it a repeated pattern showing a systemic ignorance of consequence? That's a disciplinary imperative. The analysis has to be cold, dispassionate, like a doctor identifying a threat to the body.
Okay, but that coldness can be dangerous in itself, which is why we need the second shield, the counterbalance, shield 2, the ethical shield. This is about protecting your own character as a leader.
Yes. This is about your own self-preservation. The sources point to a really powerful scriptural warning from Matthew's gospel against using contemptuous, dehumanizing language. Terms like raka, which means worthless, or muros, which means morally senseless.
Why is that so important here?
Because the warning isn't just be nice. It's a strategic insight. When a leader gives in to that rage, to that contempt, and calls someone worthless, they are committing a stupid action with their own spirit.
A spiritual net loss.
A spiritual net loss. You lose your own peace and self-control. That's a loss for you. And the person you're condemning gains nothing and is in fact harmed, a loss for them. It's a perfect loss transaction. You've allowed their stupidity to make you stupid.
So the key is to separate the act from the actor. You have to be ruthless with the destructive action, but maintain the dignity of the person.
You must. Sapola gives you the technical justification to stop the loss. The ethical shield gives you the moral imperative to do it with honor and dignity. The ultimate test for a leader is making sure that decision, even a termination, is driven solely by your duty to protect the group, not by your own personal anger or vengeance.
That is incredibly difficult to do in the heat of the moment, which I guess brings us to the final shield. How do you actually maintain that control? Shield 3, the discipline shield, stoicism.
This is the operational manual for your emotions. The core Stoic principle here is the dichotomy of control.
What I can control versus what I can't.
Exactly. The Stoic leader accepts that Sapola's laws are reality. The number of stupid people out there, the inevitability of entropic events, those are external forces. You cannot control them. And the moment you truly accept that, you stop being so frustrated by them.
It prevents your own energy from being wasted on surprise and anger.
Yes. You direct all of your energy only to the things you can control. Your judgment of the event, the rigor of your 5 whys analysis, and your calm, rational response to enforce the standard.
Justice without anger.
Justice without anger. A disciplinary decision becomes a cold, rational calculation to stop the bleeding. It's just a fulfillment of duty. You're a surgeon removing a threat to the health of the system. You do it with precision and skill, not with rage.
Okay, let's put it all together. Final scenario. You've done the analysis. You have an employee whose repeated pattern of behavior is costing the company $50,000 a month in chaos tax. Termination is the only rational option to halt the loss. How do you deploy the 3 shields?
First, the intellectual shield. You execute the decision cleanly and without delay, based on the quantified pattern of net loss. It's a risk management decision, not a personal one. Second, the ethical shield. The entire process is handled with respect. You make it clear that the decision is about the destructive pattern, not the person's inherent worth. You preserve their dignity.
And third,
the discipline shield. You have the conversation calmly, without anger. Your stoic acceptance that this outcome was, on some level, inevitable, allows you to fulfill your duty without getting consumed by it. You protect the system, and you protect your own integrity. That is what it means to be an unyielding fortress. #outro, houstro.
At the end of the day, this whole framework really presents us with a choice, doesn't it? It's mastery or submission. You can stay emotionally reactive. You can keep being surprised by this stuff.
And if you do, you're willingly submitting to that entropic tide. You're letting chaos run your life.
Or you can choose mastery. You can wield this unified shield, the intellectual, the ethical, the disciplinary, and actively fight back against that decay.
And the reward for that fight, for doing that hard work of negentropy, is immediate. It's profound. The moment you successfully identify and eliminate a major source of net loss, the system is instantly flooded with new, usable energy.
The energy that was being wasted paying the chaos tax.
Exactly. That translates to increased speed because your team is innovating instead of fixing things.
It means reduced stress and higher trust because the environment is stable and predictable. People can focus on the mission instead of watching their backs.
And maybe most importantly, when a leader consistently defends standards with rational firmness, but treats people with ethical compassion, you earn a kind of moral authority that you just can't get any other way.
It lets the entire organization shift its focus, right? From just trying to survive the chaos to actually aspiring to build something great with all that reclaimed energy.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. This analysis shows that every ignored protocol, every moment of incompetence you tolerate, isn't just an annoyance. It's a measurable strategic threat. It has a real cost.
So the question for you to take away is this.
Go back and think about your last week. Using the metrics we talked about, recovery time, the cost of chaos, what percentage of the usable energy in your professional life is currently being burned up paying that chaos tax? And more importantly, what breakthrough idea, what critical project, what aspiration could that reclaimed energy finally fuel if you decided to master this irrational world instead of just being a victim of it?